I'd like to tell you about my mother and my dad, David and Lena Miller. They were married in 1917, and my dad, when he was living in Europe, learned to be a what should I say, a tailor. He hated being called a tailor, but that was his avocation, destined to be. And my dad was a pioneer, went to western Nebraska, had a homestead, then went to Canada, had a homestead up there, then went to work in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, in a factory, and then returned to Omaha, where my parents lived. My dad didn't know of any other business that he could do, so he went to work for a gentleman, Sam Kaplan, who had a manufacturing company downtown at 12th and Farm. Sam and my dad got along just great until one Sunday morning we got word that the building had blown up, and my dad and Mr. Kaplan were out of business. So my dad and mother decided they would start their own business and try to manufacture ladies' ready-to-wear. First thing they did was look for location. Well, the best part of Omaha at that time, probably in the 1930s, 1935, 36, my dad found a place upstairs at 1212 Farnham. Downstairs was the Philadelphia Leather Company, and my dad thought that would be fine. Being upstairs and being able to have his own machinery and his staff that he needed, he was willing to take that chance, and my mother was willing to work beside him. She would do the bookkeeping and he would do the rest. So they hired a presser, they hired machine operators, and all in all they had about 8 people working for them. Now comes the fact, what should they manufacture if they're going to be in business? They decided they would make up some samples of coats, ladies' coats and suits, and my dad would go to the different stores in Omaha and in surrounding communities and see if he could sell his product to them. My dad was not a salesman. He was only used to working in a machine. So this was kind of a tough thing for him to do, but he did it. He went to Lincoln, he went to Nebraska City, he went to Grand Island, he went all over Nebraska and in Omaha, and picked up about 5 clients. And they said, make us up something and bring it to us. So my dad and mother worked hard. My dad put out patterns that he had purchased in New York. He had gone to New York to get some fabric and to get the tools that he needed and to whatever he needed to start his business. So he came back home. He had these orders, and he made ladies' skirts, ladies' jackets, coats. He made just a variety of different items, and proudly took them to the store, some of the stores in Omaha first. At first, he did not find a captive audience, so he thought he would go to a small town and try an experiment there. Well, as luck would have it, he was received well and given some orders. So he came back to Omaha jubilantly, and they started to take the material they had and the pattern they had. My dad laid them out on a big table that he had purchased and cut them and gave them to the staff that he had hired to work. And lo and behold, within about a month, he had some wares to take out to Lincoln to show what he could do. Well, he was accepted jubilantly, and they wanted to keep his samples and ordered more in different colors, and he felt like he was on his way. Well, when he came back to Omaha, it suddenly dawned on him he needed somebody to keep books for him. So my mother said, well, I'll try. I went to business school. Maybe I can set up some bookkeeping or something. So he did that, and she did that, and so then she was doing the books, and he was doing the manufacturing. But he always came back to Lena and said, what do you think? They had a good thing going, and they worked side by side till he retired. And my dad was in his 80s when he retired. He kept getting new clients. Then he had to learn how to ship merchandise. Well, my brother, Dr. Miller, was going to medical school at the time here at Creighton, and he put him to work to mail the merchandise once it was made up. My dad's business continued to flourish, and everybody was very happy. We were living with my grandparents for a few years, and then we were able to move up. My parents bought a duplex, and we moved on our own. And I continued to take over a little bit of my mom's work as bookkeeper because it was getting to be too much for her. And my brother Dan was graduating medical school and had been accepted at a hospital in Chicago, so he was leaving. So my dad and mother were back to Lena and Dave, and kept the shop open, as I say, until my mother got ill, and my dad couldn't keep it up on his own. So he didn't sell the business to anybody, but just closed the shop. But it was a very, very successful business for a good number of years, and it was at 12th and Farnham, it was the hub of all activity.
It is June 27th, and here we are at Boys Town, Nebraska, the domain of Louise Abrahamson. Louise has created something here that is spectacular. It is innovative, and it's all hers. She is a very quiet lady, and we are here this morning to let her tell you her story of the clothesline and all that she's done for the Nebraska Jewish Historical Society and her part in the Old Market, and on and on and on. Join us. A year ago, I came out here and Louise showed me this shop. I couldn't believe my eyes. She has clothing here for all of the students, not students, they're residents of Boys Town. And she will tell you about what she has, where she got it. But walk around, look around. There's school jackets, shoes, jeans, sweatshirts, belts, very modern clothing, all the things that anybody would want if they were a teenager. And I don't want to tell you any more about this because the lady who knows where she got it, why she got it, and what this is all about is sitting right over here at this desk.
My name is Louise Miller Abrahamson. I was born in September the 7th, 1919 in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And today's date is June 27th, 2000, the year 2000. I go back to my origins in Canada, where my dad was a homesteader in Alliance, Nebraska, Alliance, Alberta, Canada. The reason the name of the town was Alliance was that my dad was also a homesteader in Alliance, Nebraska. And he and his brother were not making it there. They were just barely eking out a living. So one of the brothers, my uncle, went to Canada and staked out a claim. And my dad pulled out of Alliance, Nebraska. They went to this place in Alliance, Alberta, that they named, as I said, and that's where we were for about 5 years. My parents, David and Lena Miller, were married in Omaha. My dad had fallen in love with my mother in Europe, in Capullia, and she was 9 years old and he was 15 years old at the time, and he saw her. She was blonde, blue-eyed, pretty little girl, and he said, someday I'd like to marry her. And never realizing that in later years his mother would be living with this little girl's mother, and when he came to America, he met her again, and she was a young lady of 16 years old. They got engaged and married in 1916 at the Swedish Auditorium. My folks were froze out up in their at their homestead in Canada, and my uncle decided to stay there. My dad went to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, where my brother Daniel, Dr. Dan Miller, was born in 1918. And I was born. Then they moved to Calgary because my dad was looking for work and got a job as a tailor. And there I was born on September the 7th, 1919. Shortly thereafter, my grandmother in Omaha, my mother's mother, became ill. And my mother felt that she needed to come home and be with her mother. So my dad quit his job and they moved to Omaha. And they, of course, had to find a job for my dad and for my mom, if possible, and went to work for a gentleman named Sam Kaplan, who was making Charleston skirts in those days. And both of my dad and my mom were seamstress. He was a cutter, and my mother was a seamstress. And they worked with Mr. Kaplan, and we lived with my grandparents until I was 8 years old. Then my parents, we lived in this small little house on North 20th, 1838 North 20th, and it was a 2.5 bedroom home, and in the home lived my grandfather, my grandmother, my step-aunt and uncle, my mother and dad, and my brother and I. The older people had their bedroom, and I slept on a single bed with my aunt, and my brother slept on a pull-down bed in the dining room. So, but we ate and we slept, and we felt that my brother and I, that everybody lived this way. That was the way of life. We had our fun playing whist and bridge, and when my grandfather was a peddler, And I used to go to the market with him when I was a good girl, and he would take me there, and I was in awe of all of the activity that went on down there. Everybody was really out for themselves, and he really had to wheel and deal to get his wares early on so he could get out and sell the stuff before it was too late in the day. He was very religious, so before he went on his route, he would go to the synagogue and put on his tefillin and do all the prayers that were necessary. And he came home in time to go to shul and again take part in the mincha and mariv services. So, but I was really lucky when I was able to go to the market with him. Most of the people at the market were either Jewish or Italians, mostly. And I remember a cousin of ours, Morris Green. His wife was a first cousin of my dad, and we did a lot of business with him. And most everybody would give me an apple or an orange or something so that I would not starve, so to speak. I wasn't starving, but you know, to give a child something was very appropriate in those days. And so I went to Lake School until I was in the 3rd grade. And I don't know who some of the people were living next to us. The Zuckers lived right next door. Julia Zucker and let's see who had, the Siegels had a grocery store down the street. There was a butcher shop. It was the hub of Jewish activity between 20th and 24th Street. The Spars had a grocery store down the street on Clark Street, and we were just surrounded. There was the Salin family, there was the Zielinski family, there was the Cooperman family. There were just so many Jewish people around that we didn't have time for any Gentile friends. It was all Jewish friends. And when we moved away, I was very lonesome for this area. We moved to 604 South 35th Street. It was a duplex that my parents had purchased. And I was enrolled in Columbian School. It was on 38th and Jones. And I went there for the remainder of my grade school days. And I think the only other Jewish person that went to that school was a girl by the name of Pearl Lipsy. And I do not know her married name, but she was a cousin of Jimmy Lipsy, and Stan Lipsy was her brother. And we were very, very good friends. Might add in passing that Dorothy McGuire, the actress, went to that school, and we were always very proud of that fact. And I graduated from grade school. I participated in running. That was my big thing. I loved to run. I was kind of a tomboy type girl, and I won the city 50-yard dash, and was so proud that I participated mostly in boys' activities. Fact is, for one of my Hanukkah presents when I was about 11 years old, my dad gave me a pair of boxing gloves. And my folks worked 6 days a week. The only day they didn't work Friday night and Saturday. And Friday night, my dad and I would go to synagogue, the Beth El, which was located at the Jewish Community Center on 20th and Dodge. And we never missed a Friday night. That was our ritual. My mother didn't participate in that. She was not a well person most of her life. She suffered from migraine headaches, and working kind of did her in. And so she did what she could do, and the rest was up to the family to kind of fend for themselves. And I went to, when I graduated grade school, that must have been in 1933, I was enrolled in Central High School and went to Central for 4 years, graduated, and took a college prep course, but didn't even realize I could ever afford to go to college. And I did, however, when I graduated grade school, went to Central and graduated from them. I was in the a cappella choir. I was in sports, the Girls Athletic Association. I took Spanish. I was in the Spanish club. I was in whatever activities I could possibly participate in. There were many Jewish clubs at the time, but the Jewish kids were not familiar with me as a Jewish person, and so I wasn't asked to join the Jewish clubs that were in existence at that time, and myself and several other girls formed a club called the Bas Ami. We were kind of reject girls, and we formed this Bas Ami, which daughter of my people, and we wanted to help all the other Jewish organizations to come together. And so we were in existence for a good number of years and had many reunions, and it was a good organization, I thought. And when I finished high school, I went to Omaha University. I had a scholarship to Morningside College, but my folks couldn't see my going away from home. So I was permitted, this is kind of strange, I was permitted to go to college if I got the money together and could go. I had to pay my way. So I got 2 jobs, one in the athletic department at Omaha U, which was located at that time on 24th and Pratt. And used to take the streetcar, and I went with Francis Rosenblatt, Francis Fox now, and we went to Omaha U there. And then the new school was being built, and we all transferred to the new school. And there was Eddie Dolgoff, there was Norman Rosenthal, there was Jack Epstein, there was just not a lot of Jewish kids, but there were a few. And of course, there was a sorority there, but at that time I wasn't interested in any activities such as that. I didn't have time. I worked and then had to go home and had my home chores to do. And during most of my growing up years, I was the chief cook and bottle washer, and did the washing, the ironing, the cleaning, because as I said, my mother was really not in good health. And I went to Omaha U for 3.5 years, and during the interim of this time, I met my husband, and my husband-to-be, and we decided to get married. My folks never did forgive me for not finishing my final year of school, and thought that our marriage would never last. Contrary to that, we were married 58 wonderful years. We got married, and my husband went into the service. Oh, I should say, my dad, when he came to Omaha, finally bought his own business. It was called Miller Garment Company, and it was located at 1212 Farnham, upstairs from where Mr. Levy had Philadelphia Leather Company. And my dad was in business there for quite a few years. He manufactured ladies' ready-to-wear and sold it to stores like Brandeis, Herzberg's, a lot of stores in the country, I can't even remember all the stores, but he sold to the stores, and it was all handmade, practically. He had a factory where he had 6 or 7 people that were there then working for him. I used to go down after school when I had the time and would do some of the book work for him. And that's where I sort of got indoctrinated into the clothing business, you might say. And after, let's see, I was up to the point where I quit school in my final year at college and got married. My husband, it was just before World War II, and my husband was drafted. Well, first, let me go back a ways. I got pregnant right away, and unfortunately, we lost our first child. So as soon as the baby was not here, they made my husband a 1A in the draft, and within a very short time, he left for the Air Force. We had lived in an apartment, a one-bedroom apartment, and I moved in with my parents. But once you leave the nest, it's very hard to go back to the nest. So I got busy, and whatever money I had, I used to follow my husband around while he was in the service. And I got jobs on base where he was, doing court reporting, legal work. I worked for the judge advocate's office. And by working in that office, wherever he was, I would always get housing. So housing was no problem, and we lived, well, not bad. My husband got out of the service in 1945 when our second child was born, a son, and he was born in November 5th, 1945, and we were living with my parents, waiting to find an apartment. He, at this time, also was discharged from the service honorably, and we had a new life to make. And we struggled with various things. Went to a small town in Iowa, Audubon, Iowa, where Meyer Rubeck had a shoe store. He was in the grocery business, but he still had a shoe store there, and he was wanting to get rid of it, so we purchased it and spent 3 years there with just one other Jewish family there. Let's see, their name was Krasny, the Krasny family. We stayed in Audubon for 3.5 years, and we heard about a Bellevue, Nebraska that was wide open for a shoe store, and that's what we were in. My husband had worked as a shoe man when he was going to high school. So we borrowed the money and went into the shoe business in Bellevue in 1950, and we're in the shoe business till 1965. At that time, I had opened up my own knit shop. That knitting was my hobby, and I got to be pretty good at it. So I decided to open up a knit shop because we needed extra income. And I worked in the shoe store and worked in the knit shop, and took the boys into. I had another son in 1947, Steve, and I took the boys to Hebrew school every night, Monday through Thursday, and on Sunday, beside working at my 2 jobs. So, and our house was always open to the family. It was where everybody met. It was always Freilich in the house, and I helped my husband in the shoe business, so I was kind of familiar with a lot of his sources, and I began to take more of an interest in his business, and then he decided he didn't like the shoe business, he wanted to go into real estate. So he went to school and became a realtor, and then went into, he developed land, and he became a builder, and he kind of left me in charge of the shoe store. Well, that was the way it went till 1967. By that time, our boys were in college. Steve was going to the University of Missouri. He was our younger son in pre-med, and our oldest son, Hugh, was at the University of Nebraska, taking up architecture and business. And I'm trying to get the sequence here. I hope I'm getting it right. On January 16th, January 26th in 1967, we got a call from county hospital that our son Steve, well, they didn't know for sure whether both boys were in the car, but there had been a very catastrophic accident on the highway, and we should come to county hospital immediately. And so I contacted my husband in the real estate office, and we drove to county hospital to find that our son was in critical condition and was doubtful that he would make it. Well, at the time, my brother, Dr. Miller, was practicing in Omaha. They called him. He closed his office, came to the hospital, spent 2.5 days there with him, didn't leave his side, and somehow called in all the doctors that were necessary and pulled him through. Our son was in desperate straits for a long time, and for about 2.5 years, he was in the hospital for 6.5 months, and after he got out for 2.5 years, I was glued to him, and we went from rehab center to rehab center to see what could be done for him, and God was with us, and instead of being a vegetable, as the doctors had anticipated, he became a full-fledged person again. He had a left side paralysis, but he has overcome that, and he is married now for 16 years, is working at Boys Town, has worked here for 19 years, and has a very productive life, drives, does all the things of daily living on his own, and it is absolutely a miracle. For a time, I worked at the European Health Spa as office manager because I was kind of mixed up and didn't know what I wanted to do after the accident. And then things were going along pretty good for my husband, and but I needed to work, so I just kept working, and in the course of time, I decided I wanted to go back and do something on my own. And during the course of all of this, during this time period, I was always a volunteer. Whenever a drive came out, I was always the person that went house to house. I worked for Hadassah, I worked for Council, I worked for B'nai B'rith, I worked wherever they needed me. If I was very active in the Jewish community at that time. And then, as with most people that do volunteer work in certain areas, you burn out. So in the 1970s, I went to work in politics and worked for some people that were elected to governor, senators, congressmen, mayor. I worked for just untiringly for such people, and everything was free. I didn't charge anything. Nobody even offered to pay me anything. I just gave them the benefit of my expertise. I was assistant campaign manager for Lee Terry when he was running for Congress, and I was the Omaha liaison for Kay Orr when she was running. Party politics, I was really not interested. I was kind of an independent person, and felt comfortable on either side if I liked the candidate. And things went on like that until in the 70s, our whole world came apart because we lost everything that we had. We had apartment buildings, we had 60 homes that we owned. We had just everything going for us, but the economy at that time became very severe, and we met our Waterloo, and all we had left was our home and our car and our children and our family, And at that time, I was close to 60, and my husband was about 18 months older than I. So at the time when most people are thinking of retiring, we had to start anew. That was when I took my resume and came over to Boys Town because my husband had developed an area close to Boys Town, and I thought that would be close for me to go to work if I could get a job there. So I left my resume, and they told me they don't hire people through a resume, they hire them generally through employment agencies. So I went home and I went to a temporary place and went to work for them at the Methodist Hospital for their corporate office, and was working there when I got the call that Boys Town had something for me on a temporary basis. Well, I knew that was a place where they helped kids, and I was still into helping the handicapped because of my son's disability, and I decided that I would try Boys Town. So for 3 years I was temporary full-time, and I loved working with the children. That was the time when they first took in girls, and I just loved it. I would go to the homes for dinners and saw how they lived, and it impressed me even more. And then I thought, well, I really need a better job. I told them I couldn't be on a temporary basis because I had no hospitalization. I had no benefits. So they said, have patience with us, you'll get a full-time job, which I did, finally. And I got a job as a receptionist and in the youth care building. And as I was sitting there as receptionist, the kids would come in, and they'd look so sad and forlorn, and they had no personal belongings, most of them. They'd just come in with a sack and would sit there so pathetic. And I think, what can I do to make them feel better? Well, I always had a dish of candy on my desk, and that might make them feel better, but not really. That wouldn't help in any way to help shape their lives. So I thought, I know so many people in the clothing business. Maybe if I write to them, they might send me some of the things that they have from leftover clothes from the previous years, irregulars, just whatever they might want to send me. So I wrote, I think, maybe a half a dozen letters. And out of the half a dozen letters, I got 3 responses that were very positive. And they asked me, where should they send this stuff? Well, Boys Town didn't know anything about this. I hadn't even discussed it with anybody. So I said, I gave them my home address and told them to deliver it into my garage. So that's what they did, and I and my husband unpacked the stuff that was sent to me, which looked pretty good. Girls' dresses, jackets. It was just really very interesting. And so I would I told the people at Boys Town what I had at home, and they could send the family teachers or the kids over or whoever over and pick out the clothes that they wanted. So pretty soon I had quite a throng of people coming to my house looking for clothing. And then I was talking to Shirley Goldstein, and she had a cousin who was working for Edison Brothers, and I didn't know this, but he was sending her all of the overages from Edison Brothers in St. Louis, the shoes, the coats, the jackets, everything. And she says, why don't you come over and see what you can use? I can't use. She was getting this stuff for the Russian people and was distributing to them. So she asked me to come over, and she says, pick out what you want. Maybe you can use some of this stuff. And of course, this was like a whole new world opened up to me. I could have shirts, and I could have jackets, and I could have all of this stuff that Shirley, had excess of. So I would have it hauled over to my garage, and we kept loading up the garage, and pretty soon our cars were out in the street, but we had stuff in the garage. And I was talking to one of the people at Boys Town, and they said, we hear right what you're doing? And I said, yes. They said, well, why don't you bring it over to the youth care building? We've got a room there. You can put the stuff in there, and then it'll be handy for the kids and the people to come in and look at it. Oh, great. Anything to get it out of my garage. So this happened, and the warehouse people came over and brought the stuff over to this conference room in the youth care building, and I was just amazed at the amount of stuff. And then I got the bright idea. My husband used to work for Edison Brothers. He had a cousin who was a vice president of Edison Brothers. Why didn't I take it upon myself to contact them along with the other people that I was contacting? So I contacted them, and my husband's cousin said, of course, we'll do anything we can for you. And lo and behold, the next thing I knew, I had 100 cases of merchandise that came in for me, and everything had to be gone through because not all clothes was appropriate for our children. We had a very strict dress code. So some of the people from Boys Town would give me a hand and help me unpack, but I was young in those days. I was only in my 60s, so I was picking up boxes and loading them and unloading them, and I guess I had boundless strength. I don't know. And Shirley was still sending me the stuff that she had, and then she decided she didn't want to do that anymore, and her cousin was leaving Edison Brothers. He was retiring. So all of this fell totally on me. Edison Brothers was sending me so much stuff, I really didn't need anybody, so I didn't really pursue it very much. And this went on for, I would say maybe 4 or 5 years. And during this time, everybody seemed to come to me if they needed tickets, or if they needed anything free, or if they needed anything, they'd say, go see Louise. Or if they needed activities to be planned for the kids here at Boys Town, they'd say, go see Louise. And I would go around or call different vendors here in Omaha, and pretty soon I was putting on Christmas parties, and I was getting tickets for ball games and tickets for shows that were coming to Omaha and to Lincoln and the Lead Center. And I was just like an entrepreneur, and it just sort of just came upon me, just one thing at a time. And then it came time for me, I lied about my age when I came to work at Boys Town, I'm ashamed to say. I told them I was 56 when indeed my next birthday I would have been 60. So when I was really 65, good old Uncle Sam came in and notified Boys Town that I was 65 and could go on Medicare. That did not make me happy. I had to go into the office and show him my birth certificate and confess that in reality I was born in 1919. But I didn't want to collect my Social Security because it would have been so meager. My wages throughout my working years were so meager. And I knew that for every year I worked, I would get 5% more in Social Security. So I bet that I could work till I was 70. And I did not collect Social Security until I was 70. And at age 70, I decided I would retire. I retired for 2 weeks. I went walking at the West Roads. I volunteered my time for the Historical Society. I volunteered my time for the handicapped. I had been made chairman of the Nebraskans for the Handicapped in 1981 and had gone to Washington to help draft new laws for the handicapped. And I just knew I had to do something with my time, so I wrote up a proposal for Father Peter, who was then the executive director out here. And lo and behold, I said I would put in 8 hours a day, 8 hours a day, 8 hours a week, and that I could volunteer my time for that. And so he said, well, go ahead, try it out. And I had moved out of the conference room, had moved over to the place where they had the laundry. I was in the boiler room. And I would come in on Sundays and unpack the stuff and put it out and have it ready for Monday. That was all volunteer. And I had a black lady who was a good friend of mine, Bev Ayers, and she would come in on Sunday morning. We'd get here about 7 o'clock in the morning, and we would work till noon. That was our hours. And we got the things out and got things going. And then I'm going to go back to then when I retired, and Father Peter said I could do this. They moved me into a place over in the youth care building, a bigger place. And it was kind of a sleeper. Nobody ever used that room. It was a blank room, but it was great for me there. It was a place where people could drive up and get their wares and go out. And in the meantime, I was writing. If somebody would turn me down, I would write and say, thank you, I appreciate your time. And then I would forget about them for maybe 6 months, 7 months. And then I'd write to a different person in the company, because companies are always changing their people that work for them, you know that. And eventually I would get stuff from places like Johnson Johnson, Land's End, let's see who else, the Starter Company, VF, that's Vanity Fair Factory Outlet. I just wrote to fact is, every time I got a catalog, their CEO or their president got a letter from me. And if from a dozen letters, if I would get 2 responses that were positive, I was very happy, because that would help to fill up my place here. And after about 4 years after my retirement, Father Peter says, we're remodeling the post office building and the warehouse, and we're going to give you a room. And I was excited, but how would I fill up a great big room? I didn't think I could possibly do that. Well, God was good, and I got lots of merchandise, and here I am in this place that has really grown. I work 40 hours a week, 5 days a week. Once in a while I'll take off an afternoon and play mahjong, or play pan, or play Shanghai. Those are the 3 games I enjoy. And I play with women, Lois Emelman, Marilyn Sachs, Lucille Epstein, Ida Richards. We've been friends since girlhood, and we still get together, and that's really great. But I have to tell you that my work comes first, because that's what makes me tick. My husband passed away about 8 months ago. He had lung cancer and fought the battle for about 7 years, and times were rough. But he insisted during that time that what made him happy was my going to work and being involved. And he took great pride in this, and always encouraged me and told me someday I ought to put it in writing. So after he passed away and I had some free time, I did write a book about how I got started and what I'm doing, and hoping that maybe I can go into consulting with other people that would like to do the same thing. Everything that I get in donations, everything, whether it's self-care products, whether it's clothing, whether it's magazines, whether it's shoes, whether it's whatever it is, everything is given to the kids free of charge. never any charge. They can take what they need as long as I have a lot of stock. When I don't have a lot of stock, then I proportion it out and say you can take one of these per person. But with over 500 children here, a little bit doesn't go a long way, so we have to have a lot of everything. Also, we have 15 sites and I don't know how many shelters throughout the United States. And I ship merchandise. I pack it and ship it to all of our sites throughout the country. They call me on the phone and tell me what they need, and even never having seen the children, I've been around them so much that I pretty much know what they like. And I send them little surprises, like I get tapes in that they don't know about. I get little trading cards, baseball, football, basketball trading cards. I get jigsaw puzzles. I get books, and I just include that in some of the packages. I get makeup for the girls sometimes. Whatever I get goes to the kids, and I find it very, very fulfilling. I can hardly wait for the day to start so that I can get started in what I'm doing. And I leave here, I come here about 9 in the morning and leave about 4:30. Sometimes it's after 6 if it requires my being here. Right now, as far as help is concerned, I have a woman who's Jean Lux, who is a retired nurse from Methodist Hospital. She was in charge of children's cardiac department, and she wanted to be a volunteer somewhere where she didn't have to do any book work. So she comes to help me. She's a 70-year-old lady, and she doesn't want me to lift things, so she lifts things for me. And she's been wonderful, wonderful for me. In fact, this last year she was made Outstanding Volunteer of the Year, which is, I only have one volunteer here. Many places have more. I felt very flattered that they thought that much of this place. And I have, throughout the years, I might say that I got very interested in the Jewish Historical Society, and I even used that as a ploy to get some merchandise from the Buckle. I wrote Mr. Hirschfield in Kearney that if he would send me stuff, I would come out to Kearney and do an interview with him for our Historical Society. He never took me up on it, but he did start sending me merchandise, and I just got a call last week that his Buckle was sending me 14 pallets of merchandise for my children. So, but that took about 5 years to develop. I kept writing him, and my last thing was the Historical Society, and that seemed to touch a nerve. I guess that's what it was, because now we're doing business with them. And this is the way I do. I never take no for an answer. I am persistent. I love what I do. My family are all very, very supportive. And I have had a very fulfilling life. I might say that at one time I was, for 2 terms, I was president of the Jewish Historical Society, and now a member of the board. And I've been on the Boys Town Federal Credit Union for going on 19 years, and have been a loan officer and am now a member of the board. Have been a member of the board for a good number of years. And I can say that God has again been real good to me, because he's blessed me with good health and a lot of energy, and that's about what I can say about myself.
Well, tell me, Louise, this is a question that no one ever asks a lady, but I'm a lady, and you've talked about your 60s and your 70s. Would you mind telling us how old you are at this point?
I'm soon to be 81. I'll be 81 in September.
Well, I would say that you have had a very full life.
It has been. It has been. I do as much walking. I ride my bike twice a day, 15 minutes a time. I have a stair step, and I'm on that at least once a day. And I do a lot of needlepoint. That's really my hobby right now, is needlepointing. I've done that for the last, well, since I had my knit shop, I've been doing needlepoint, and I probably have done maybe 100 pieces in my life, and I've got them hung in my home. And I love to read, and love to shop.
Can you
Love to
describe
travel.
your relationship with the Nebraska Jewish Historical Society in depth a little bit for us, please?
Oh yes, I love that place. I love what they do. There's many places I could volunteer in the Jewish community. This I realize. I give charity to many places, money, but what I really love is that the Historical Society to me is lebendig. That means lively. There's activity. We're perpetuating what was past, what is now, what our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, because I am a great-grandma, will want to know about Judaism in time to come. And if I can be part of that, if I can project any part of that, I want to be there. I want to be active. I want to help people know that we are interested in what they're doing. So many people say to me, well, I don't have any family here. I don't know anything about anything. They didn't do something for me right away. I left a picture and they didn't put it on the board. I said, it doesn't make any difference. At some time it will be used. It will leave your name in the community. People will know that you lived in Omaha, Nebraska. After all, you grew up here. Some of you were born here. Why wouldn't you want to help the Jewish Historical Society? And I go along with that everywhere I go because it is very, very close to my heart. I love the people that I work with. I love what they do. I've been involved in, one year we brought back 24th Street. It was lively, it was lebendig, it was alive. And we can do so many things. And now with the old market, where there was such activity and where so many Jewish people got started and made their livings and became successful and have contributed so much to our Jewish community and the community as a whole. This is part of our heritage. We must get young people involved and enthused about this so that we can go on and on with this. That's exactly the way I feel. I started out where I volunteered to type interviews because I was interested in knowing what people were doing and from whence they came, because I remember so much of my early childhood. I remember going to the butcher shops. I remember people gathering in the grocery stores. I remember them sacking up beans and rice, and I remember the herring in the barrels, and they're taking out the herring and they say, no, that's too fat or that's too schmaltzy. I'm fortunate in that I can remember a lot of these things. And I want other people, other Jewish young people, perhaps there won't be that much of intermarriage if we can plant roots of Judaism in our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and let them not forget that we are a strong, viable people who have feelings, who have fought so hard throughout our lives for everything that we have. We've fought very, very hard.
Is there anything that you would like to say in this film to your children, to the community, your
I would say to
family?
my children, please, my darlings, carry on in the Jewish tradition and do what you can for charity, for the goodness of people, for the synagogues, for all Judaism. Do what you need to do for your community and for Omaha and for wherever you live. Do what you can to help those that are less privileged than you. Then you will have a fulfilled life. And I'm proud of you no matter what you do. You have been so life-supporting to me, and I love you dearly. Perhaps back in the 1980s, Mary Fellman came to me and asked if I wanted to work on a exhibit in conjunction with Boys Town. It would be called Men of Vision. And we worked on this perhaps for a year or thereabouts, gathering material and joining forces with Father Flanagan's archives. And this picture was taken when the exhibit was at the Jewish Community Center. And this is Henry Monsky's grandson, Father Peter, who is our executive director here at Boys Town, Father Flanagan, Henry Monsky, and myself. And I'm very, very proud of this accomplishment because this exhibit has gone to Ellis Island. It has gone all over the country and has been well received everywhere. And this is a picture of Father Peter, J. Noddle, and myself here at Boys Town. And Mr. Noddle is receiving a plaque of appreciation from us. Mr. Noddle has been very, very supportive. He's named Boys Town as Pacific Pals. The name of his real estate company is Pacific Realty. And throughout the years, he has been so supportive in giving us tickets and doing whatever he can for the children so that they can enjoy outside activities, and has done so many things for us in sponsoring different parties, and we just think he's absolutely the tops. And these are this photo is this is Mr. Les Lawless, who is the present owner of the Budweiser beer distributorship in this area. He bought the business from the Feltmans, Roy Feltman, Babs, and Lana Feltman, and Bob Feltman. And the Feltmans, when I went to them and asked them for tickets or asked them to sponsor a Christmas party for the children, have never turned me down. Every year they have a pizza party for all the children here at Boys Town, which numbers several hundred. And they have it at Sortino's. They serve all the food. They pay for all the food and drink. There is no limit to what the kids can order. And this is done each year now by, and this is a picture of Les and his wife and myself at the last Christmas party. And they're just wonderful, wonderful people when you stop and think of how much something like this costs in dollars and cents. It's thousands of dollars, but his warmth for Boys Town and warmth for me personally is beyond comprehension. Wonderful people. I'd like to show you this award that I received from family teachers here at Boys Town. Family teachers take care of... I'll wait till you... I would like to show you this award of merit that I received from one of the family teachers here at Boys Town. It's one of many. The family teachers are the people that take care of 8 to 9 youth in a home. By coming into my clothesline, as I call it, they save mega bucks, and they're very appreciative because it frees up some money that they can spend for food, for other areas in their home that they need the money for. This particular award was given to me by the Hardy family, which is a girls' home, and they say, your work does not go unrecognized. Thank you for all you do for Boys Town youth. May God bless you, Louise. With messages I've received from children, the fact is I'm going to interject something that last week I got a call from a young man in California who had been here 8 years ago, and he happened to think about me, got lonesome for me, and called to see how I was and if I was still at Boys Town, and he was delighted to be there. I got a call from, had somebody walk in here last week who had been a youth here 4 years ago, and he wanted to show me his wife and family, 2 children, and he was doing real well and wanted to thank me for all that I did to help him, because we used to chat a lot about what his future would hold.
Louise, I'm a teacher, and I know that the greatest reward in life is the feedback that you get from the people that you are able to help. Could you tell us what the children tell you, what the families tell you about the work that you do here at Boys Town?
I certainly can, and that's what makes it so special. This is a note that I got the other day from a young girl here. She says, Dear Louise, I just wanted to let you know how much our girls appreciated the Golden Spike tickets Friday. They were smiling and clapping during the firework display. Saturday, they loved seeing Birdzig, even though they were concerned about him throwing away the Cubs' third baseman's glove. Our girls look forward to games through the summer and are enclosing thank yous. Jeannie. And then I have a couple of notes I'd like to read because I think they're so expressive of how the children feel. Thank you a lot for taking your time to find and give me a jacket. People like you is what makes Boys Town a better place to live. That just gives me the incentive to continue on what I'm doing because I know I'm making kids happy. It doesn't solve their problems by any means, but it gives them a better self-image of themselves. Dear, thank you, Louise. I appreciate the work you did to get those jackets. I am grateful. Thank you, Isaac. And another one, that be all I'll do. I'm very grateful for my new coat. I was really needing a coat this year. Thanks a lot for the coat. Sincerely, Jacob. And this, in a small measure, tells you to what lengths the children go to make special thank you notes for me. This book is one of a dozen that I have since I've been doing this kind of work, which is probably about 14 years. And I have notes from children. I wouldn't part with them for the world. They really are part of my life and make me what I am today, concerned and caring about others.
Thank you, Louise.
Hi there. My name is Louise Miller Abrahamson. Can't leave the Miller out. I was born in Calgary, Alberta, Canada on September the 7th, 1919. My dad and his brother had a section of land up there and were homesteaders, and we lived up in Calgary in a small town that my dad and his brother named after Alliance, Nebraska, where they also homesteaded before going up to Canada. I don't have much of a recollection of Canada because my parents were, their crop was frozen out, and when I was about 7 years old, they came back to Omaha, where my parents mothers lived. My grandmother was married to a man, Ruback, and that was my mother's mother. And my dad's mother was not married, but quite by coincidence, had I don't know, got a room with my other grandmother, and that's where she was living. And when we came to Omaha, my dad's mother moved out to another place, and we moved in with my grandparents in a 3-bedroom house. There was my grandfather, my grandmother. They had 2 siblings living with them. There were 4 of us, and of course 1 bathroom, and it was pretty tough living, but we lived there until I was about 10 years old. My parents, when they came back to Omaha, my dad went into the ladies' manufacturing. First he worked for Sam Kaplan, who had a ladies' ready-to-wear factory. And then my dad went out on his own, hired people, and had his own factory. And my mother and dad worked side by side. My dad expanded his horizons and made clothing for then stores that were in Omaha: Herzberg's, Brandeis, Nadelson's, Goldstein Chapman. He made coats and suits for them, and they sold them to the public. It was a very small operation at 1212 Farnham Street, called Miller Garment Company. And when I reached the ripe age of about 14, I was drafted to do the bookwork there. And that's where I got some of my training to be a secretary and office manager at an early age. I went to Lake School in my early days. Then we moved to 35th and Jackson. My folks bought a duplex there, and I attended Columbian School. It was a school where it was a very elite school, about 3 Jewish people, no blacks, and mostly American Caucasians. I went there till I graduated grade school, and then I went on to Central High School and graduated from Central High School in 1937. I think it was 1937. Anyway, I was not a very active person in the school. I did sports and just did the common everyday schoolwork. But my great activity, was doing volunteer work at the Jewish Community Center for the different drives that were always going on. And from the time I was 14 or 15, I was always involved in some type of volunteer work, which I did enjoy. There was a Jewish old people's home on 25th and Seward, I believe, and I used to go there and sit with the ladies and gentlemen there, and I could talk Yiddish quite fluently, and we would converse and enjoy the time of day. I did that, enjoyed it very much. I did attend Talmud Torah for 6 years. I went to the Talmud Torah on, about 21st and Burt, and then went on to Talmud Torah at the Jewish Community Center. In those days, girls were not bat mitzvahed, so I started to attend Bethel classes in order to be confirmed. And so I was confirmed, and Loyal Kaplan was our teacher. Of course, every girl fell madly in love with Loyal because he was a very, very handsome gentleman. After high school, I had a chance to go to a school in Sioux City where they offered me, Morningside College, that offered me a scholarship, but my parents refused to have me leave home and allowed me, if I got a job, to go to Omaha U so I could pay my way. They didn't have the funds to pay my way to go to college, and I desperately wanted to go. I attended the University of Omaha for 3.5 years and married when I was in my last half of my 4th year, and I don't think my parents ever forgave me or my husband because they didn't think it was going to last. But I must tell you, my husband and I enjoyed 58 years. Wonderful, wonderful, great companion and helping and great years. And so I never regretted that I didn't graduate, but it was always in the back of my mind that someday I would go back and do it. To this day, I never did. I married when I was 21. I met my husband, Norman Abrahamson, who was from Council Bluffs, at a dance and in Council Bluffs. And he cut in on me, danced with me, and said, "You and I are going to be married." And I laughed at him and said, "I don't even know you." And he told me, he says, "Notwithstanding, you and I are going to be married." And about a year and a half later, on April 27th, 1941, we were married. We were married at Bethel Synagogue, who had just recently built a new synagogue on 49th and Farnham. I think we were about the second or third couple to be married there. And we had a beautiful ceremony. And I might add that Lucy, who is now at Bethel, was at Bethel at that time doing her work. And it's just incredible that she's been there that many years. Let's see. Our marriage, we had 2 wonderful children, Steve and Hugh. Hugh is our eldest. Well, we lost our first child because he had a hard time breathing after he was born, and after 2 days succumbed and is buried at Fisher Farm. Then Norman went into the service, into the Air Force, and was a bombardier, and I followed him everywhere he went because I wasn't about to lose him to some other gal. And I always got jobs. I got civil service rating and got jobs, and all my jobs warranted base housing, so we never worried about a place to live. And Norm was in the service until November of 1945. He went in February of 1943 and got out in November of 1945, just before our son Hugh was born. We've lived in Omaha all of our lives, except for that time in the service. No, I must correct that. For 3 years, we lived in a small town called Audubon, Iowa. Norman had been in the shoe business, working for Edison Brothers in Baker's Shoe Store as an assistant manager, and had a good job and made a good living. And I worked for Excel Novelty Company, and between the two of us, we were doing okay. And I've regressed so much I don't know where I stopped off.
Louise, I'd like to go back and talk to you a little bit about your parents, where they came from and so on.
My parents both came from Russia. They came from a shtetl called Kapulya, and they had what they called a lot of landslide. Landslide are people that they were either related to or that they knew in Kapulya. It was a very small town, but all through the United States and everywhere you mentioned, there were people from Kapulya. My dad came to the United States when he was 14 years old. The trade he had was a tailor, which he hated desperately. And he came to New York, stayed with his brother. Then he had family out in Nebraska, in Omaha, and so they urged him to come to Omaha, and that's how he happened to come to Omaha. Now, Lena also came from Kapulya. She was 8 years younger than Dave, but Dave fell in love with her when she was just a child, and always thought in the back of his mind that he would find this young lady and marry her someday when she got older. And lo and behold, this young lady was the daughter of the woman who married Mr. Ruback, Louis Ruback. Her mother was married to him, and when Dave came to see his mother, he discovered Lena all over again. And even though there was, at that time, 8 years difference was a big difference in age, they married, and she went to live up in Canada cooking for the ranch hands, and she had never even boiled water in her life. She was a spoiled only child. She went to a business college and got a job, but I don't know where she worked in Omaha. And my dad worked here for Emma Smith, I think it was, and then he heard that they had were paying better wages in Cedar Rapids, so he went to Cedar Rapids for a day, for a while, earned enough money to send for his mother, who came to live with Lena Miller's. Lena Hurwitz was her maiden name. Lena Hurwitz's mother and her husband. And it's quite a Cinderella story that they would have married when Dave fell in love when Lena was just a baby practically. But I guess it was meant to be, and they lived their lives together. I don't know how many years, probably 60-some years they lived together as husband and wife very happily. And I think that's a very interesting story about them. But Kapulya was the Gubernia, as they called it, and they had a synagogue. It was had dirt floors. It was like a wooden, just one room's wooden structure where they came to pray every Friday. And I don't know that any of them were that religious, but they certainly abided by Jewish law. My parents were somewhat religious. My mother bought kosher food and observed all the holidays in the traditional way, changed dishes at Passover and all that to do. Went to the synagogue. They were one of the first members of Bethel Synagogue, which met at the Jewish Community Center. And I recall that my dad and my mother didn't go, but my dad and I attended Friday night services until the time that I was engaged to be married. And those are great things, great days that I remember. The friendship that my dad and I had. And
Louise, you mentioned that your father came over because he had a brother in New York.
yes, a brother Harry, who was working in a factory, and got my dad a job. It was one of those what they call now a sweatshop, and they hired anybody that knew tailoring was hired, and they paid him a pittance. My dad slept on the floor of his brother's home, and was happy when his cousins in Omaha suggested that he move to Omaha, because by that time he was about 16 years old, and getting to be an old man, needed to make money so he could bring his mother here. And very worth noting. Parents had two children. My brother Daniel, Dr. Dan Miller, who was 20 years older than I, 20 months older than I was, and he was born December 16th, and I don't know what year I was born, as I have already mentioned. We were not close in growing up years, but we had kind of a tough time. My parents worked day and night. They would come home for dinner, then they would go back to work, and my brother and I were left to our own devices. And those were tough days. I'm sure tough on my folks and tough on us kids. And we had one car, of course, and there was no question about who was to learn how to drive, and that was my brother. Women in those days did not drive, nor did they have the opportunity to learn how. And so anytime I needed to go anywhere until I was married, I either took the bus, walked, or my dad took me. Once in a while my brother would kind of be kind-hearted and take me to a dance or something at the Jewish Community Center. We had round table dances in those days. You didn't have to have a date, you just went and you danced with whoever, and it was Freilach, it was fun, and we had those regularly. And the round table was the hub of our Jewish activity for young people. And my brother Dan was very active in AZA, and was president of his AZA 1 chapter. I didn't join any sororities that they had at Central High School, but a group of girls and I formed a club called Bas Ami, Daughter of My People, and we formed primarily so that we could do volunteer work for the organizations that had different functions. And we had a membership of probably 20, and I imagine right to this date there's probably about 6 to 8 of us still moving around. And when I got married, I had worked at Excel Novelty because we knew that Norm was going into service, and then I wanted to have a job after we lost our first baby. Then I needed the job to sustain me. Norman went into the service. At first I went to live with my parents, but once you leave the nest, it's very hard to return. And so I decided, as I said earlier, to follow my husband. And that proved very nice. We had not a great life, but it was a good life. We were together. And our last base was in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we had lived there about a year. And Norm his unit was going to be going overseas, and so I was pregnant with Hugh, and I moved back to Omaha, and Norm went to Lincoln, Nebraska. And as God would have it, the war ended, and we started our life together. And first we lived with my parents. Couldn't afford to have a place to live. There was no places to live. And after a few years, we decided that we would go to the small town and really make a fortune. Well, that wasn't to be, but we went to Audubon, Iowa. We had friends in Denison, Rosalie and Milt Salem, and we had friends in Coon Rapids, Libby and Leo Sherman. So that was how we entertained ourselves. We met from time to time at each other's homes and played cards and visited, and our children got to know each other, and we had a nice life. The Salins and the Shermans lived in the small town a lot longer than we did, 3.5 years, and then someone told us that Bellevue, Nebraska did not have a shoe store. So we went to Brown Shoe Company and asked them if they would subsidize us in opening up a Buster Brown store in Bellevue, and they agreed, and that's how we got started with our shoe store in Bellevue, and it thrived. It did very, very well, and I at that time decided I was very interested in handwork and knitting and crocheting and needle pointing, and I decided I would open up my own shop. Well, Norman was enthusiastic and encouraged me and gave me $500 to open my store that was right next to our shoe store. So the $500 that Norm gave me, I bought merchandise and advertised in our Bellevue paper, and lo and behold, I had a successful knit shop. I then started to teach knitting classes at the local junior high school, and taught at Offutt Air Force Base, which was adjacent to Bellevue. And I enjoyed this very, very much until in 1967, on January 26th, we got word via telephone that our son Steve had been in an accident and to hurry to county hospital. We closed the doors of the store, went to the hospital, and found out that he had been in a catastrophic accident on the interstate. Not his fault. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time and was unconscious. And we closed our store. I closed my knit shop. I might add that Norman had gone to real estate school and had opened up in our store a little place that he could do some real estate work, and closed that. We closed everything, and from that day, January 26th till March 1st, we stayed at the hospital waiting for our son to regain consciousness, which he did, but it left him with a permanent left side paralysis. And I might add at this point that he is a miracle. He is a dynamite guy, has worked hard all of his life to be an independent person. And as to this day, he is independent, drives a car, manages his own home, and it is just a miracle what he has accomplished in his life, and was cited by President Reagan as outstanding disabled Nebraskan. might add that our son Hugh, at age 21, decided he liked the real estate business, and he was the youngest realtor at that time, and we were very proud that he wanted to go into the business. We did close our stores, sold it to Arnie Matson, who had a shoe store in Omaha, and he bought the store, and I just closed out my knit shop and devoted my time for 2 years to rehabilitation for our son. Well, that
Louise, you mentioned that you were born in Calgary. I want to hear about that.
Calgary was still is a thriving town, but in those days it was a small town. My dad went there after they lost their crop, and went to work as a tailor, which, as I mentioned before, he absolutely detested that type of work. But it seems like the gods were against him, and no matter what the circumstances were, he ended up in the tailoring business. He was there for, we were there for about 3 years, and he decided he just was not happy. He wanted to come back to Omaha and do something else. As the good Lord would have it, all he could find at Omaha, Nebraska was tailoring. And so he ended up, all through his life, he died when he was 89, although records indicate that he was older than that, but 89 he said, and until from the time he was a child until he was, I would say, 80, he was in doing some type of work that had to do with clothing. And it's kind of sad that a man had to settle for second best when he wanted to do other things so badly. But he was a pioneer in his day by going to Alliance, Nebraska, and then Alliance, Canada, and being a homesteader, because in those days Jewish people did not do things like that. And but I don't know much about Calgary, but I know that I went back perhaps about 9 years ago. It's a beautiful, beautiful city, and very thriving, very thriving. I wish my folks had stayed there a little bit longer. And then I should say, right from the time they lost their farm, they didn't lose their farm, but they decided they didn't want to do any more homesteading. They went up to Edmonton, and my brother was born in Edmonton, but they just spent a very short time, just long enough for my mother to give birth to him, and he was a few months old. Then they moved to Calgary because Edmonton just held nothing for them, and they had my dad's brother had family in Calgary, so that gave him a little bit of incentive to go to Calgary, and so I happened to be born there.
How did your family end up in Alliance, Nebraska?
Well, my dad's brother was very, very, he was younger than my dad. They couldn't make it out in Alliance, Nebraska, and he said, "Dave, I'm leaving, and I'm going to see where I can find some land for us so that we can do the same thing, only make some money." And how he happened, he had family, his wife had family in Calgary, and they told him about that there's lots of land that up for grabs if you wanted to work on it. And so he took it upon himself to travel around the country through there, found this section of land, and was brave enough to put his name on it and send for his brother. And the Miller brothers, they did everything. They built a hotel up there. They named the town up there. They had a dime store up there. They had the town covered, and they thought that this is where they were really gonna make big bucks. But in Canada, you don't own the ground. The province owns the town, and you are welcome to work it and make as much money as you can, but the ground belongs to the as I say, the province. And so shortly before my dad passed away, he had a chance to sell. The things changed, and he could sell the rights to the land, and he sold the rights to the land. It was unfortunate because they did find oil on the ground, and of course we had no benefits from that because by that time it had been sold to somebody else. So there's quite a story there.
How many siblings did your father have?
He had 2 brothers and a stepsister. His mother was married, I think, 3 or 4 times, but 2 brothers, Harry and Israel, and a sister, Ida. And my mother had a sister who died when she was 12, and my mother was raised as an only child, and
Your mother's mother, do I understand correctly, came here to live with you?
She was sent for by this Mr. Ruback because she said she would come and help raise his children, and for that he would marry her. So that was an arranged marriage, not a marriage of love. But I have remained good friends with all of the siblings of Mr. Ruback, and have close ties with them. And he was a good man. He was a peddler, and had his horse and buggy in the garage and back of the house, and every once in a while he'd take me or my brother out with him on his route, selling his wares. He had regular customers. And kind of interesting, in the evenings we'd spend all oranges and lemons were wrapped in paper. And we used to spend our evenings taking the paper off of these fruits, and then we would use the paper, I'm ashamed to say, as toilet paper. But that was the way things happened in those days. And everything was, your entertainment was in your home. You didn't go out of your home for entertainment because it was too expensive, and it was a lot more fun just to be with family. And if you did go to a show, it was a nickel for children. So on Saturdays, when my parents were working, they'd stick me in the show at noon, and they'd come and get me when they were through working. And that was their babysitter. So it was quite different than what we have in today's world.
Louise, what are your memories of grade school here in Omaha?
Grade school was Lake School, and we had a great Jewish population, but even greater black population. And we were, I can recall going to the homes of my black friends, and a lot of Italians also, but my black friends and their mothers would give us snacks after school, and were just so kind. And there was really no racism, I would call it, in those days. We called the people niggers in those days, but that wasn't anything that was bad. And then it was Negroes, and then now it's African Americans, and we had some wonderful teachers, and it was a fun time. It was a good time at Lake School because everybody knew everybody, and all the activities that they planned for us were fun. It was games, but this is the world we knew. We didn't go until we graduated grade school. We didn't go to the parks other than Elmwood Park, which is a free park, but there was another park, Peony Park, but it cost to go in there, and they had a lot of rides, and we couldn't afford to go there because we didn't have the money. But when we graduated, the day after we graduated, everybody was invited to go to Peony Park, and everything was free. And so we made a day of it. We went swimming, we had picnics, we went on the rides. It was really a fun day. But that was for the rich kids. It wasn't for kids who were in my category that were, I wouldn't say poor, but we thought we were rich. We didn't know we were poor. But it was a good learning experience. I feel that it made me and others that attended these schools tough and able to bear the recessions that we had, the bad times that we had in the 20s and the 30s. Nowadays, young people are not denied anything, even though their money is limited. They're still not denied a lot of things as we were in those days, and we were so grateful for what we could have and what we could get, that as I face life, I know that it was a time that made a generation, and our generation went through several wars, a lot of hard times. It made us tough, and that's not all bad. We're a tough generation. Perhaps I say that and people will laugh at that, but as I look about me, I feel that I'm justified in making a statement such as that, because I see that young people, their parents say, no, you can't do that, we can't afford it. But somehow, some way, they do get to do what their peers do. And in those days, there was no alternative. You read, you were with family, you found your entertainment at home. It's just totally a different world. I don't know whether it's a better world. I don't know if what we had was a worse world. But I do know that being brought up in those days made a very, very tough generation. And we can face the adversities that we face as we enter our era. And whoever dreamt that people that were born in those days would live to be 80, when my grandparents died when they were in their early 60s, we thought they were old people. That's being middle-aged these days. And so many of my friends and my peers now are in their 80s, their latter 80s, and they're tough, and they know how to work with pain, and they do it. And longevity is, I don't know whether it's good or bad, but I think we're fortunate to be here seeing all these wonderful things that are happening in our world.
I'd like to hear a little bit about your brother.
My brother Dan was a very quiet, conscientious young man. We both were, because my brother Dan, when he was a youngster, there was a grocery store across from us. A man, Mr. Polonsky, Jewish man, owned it, and my brother went to work for him. Along with working for him, he had a paper route, and I used to help him. We used to have to load it all in a wagon, and we'd take it around, and times were tough. When my brother Dan decided he wanted to be a doctor, my parents went to other doctors and said, talk him out of it. there's no future in being a doctor. But he wanted desperately to be a doctor. And as the years went on, his medical profession was his life. It was his life. And he strived so hard. In high school, he didn't make great grades. He didn't put forth his greatest effort. But when he got out of high school and wanted to go to Creighton University to study medicine, my parents said, "Are you crazy? We don't have the money to send you to Creighton. And besides, they have a quota." He says, "Don't worry about that. I can get jobs." There was a place called Central Market. I can work at Central Market, and I can do other odd jobs, and I can make it in med school. And that he did. And there weren't many young men and very, very few young women who worked when they were going to med school because it was tough. But he was very tenacious. And when he set his mind to something, he did it. And being a doctor was his lifetime ambition. And he put his whole heart and soul into it. He studied in Chicago at Michael Reese, and he studied in, I believe Boston it is, Massachusetts General Hospital, and got in there because he had excellent grades and was a fine example of a young man. He also was in the service, was a captain in the medical division, stationed, I think, down south, and I forget where, but he was in the service and got out, and then started a practice in Chicago, where his wife was, and didn't like Chicago at all, and decided to come to Omaha and set up his practice here, and built up a real good practice. And he had a lot of Jewish trade because he too was very fluent in Yiddish and could interact with his Jewish patients. And up until the day my brother retired, his work was his great love. And he was a man that I really admired very, very much. We didn't have a close relationship, as I say, because he was always wrapped up in the world that he wanted for himself. And so he went his way, and I went my way. As I grew older, I used to call him every day and see how he was, and made overtures to try to make a closer relationship. But we never really had a very close relationship, but I was always very, very, very proud of the name and very proud of him as an individual, because he was welcomed by the entire community in all hospitals, and just greatly loved. I'm proud to say he was my brother.
I want to hear about your wedding.
My wedding, my husband and I, we were working. Norman was working in a shoe store. I was working at that time for Glandolac, which was owned by the Rice brothers. And we decided to get married, and I said to my mother, we're going to have a very small wedding, just immediate family. And she says, "How can that be?" She says, "You've got to have a wedding." I says, "Mom, if you want a wedding, it's your wedding." So that's what it was. It was her wedding. She made my wedding dress, which I still have. She invited all the guests. She arranged for everything that took place. We had the wedding, then we had a reception at Bethel, then we had a dinner at the Fontenelle Hotel. and my mother arranged everything, did everything, and I just attended the wedding because I felt we could use the money, but that wasn't what she wanted. And my brother Dan then came to me at this time and he says, Louise, don't fight it. Mother's got one daughter. She wants to have a big wedding. Let her do it. So I acquiesced and had, I would say at least 300 people at the wedding. And it was a beautiful wedding. And we have pictures of it. In those days you didn't take that many pictures, but we do have lots of pictures. And as I say, it was at Bethel. And Rabbi Goldstein married us. He was, in my estimation, one of the best rabbis we've had at Bethel, and really put together a great congregation that was loving and caring.
Do you remember some of your attendance at your wedding?
You know, no, I don't. I really don't. It escapes me who my attendants were at the wedding. I know my husband, his brother was, Jeannie Blacker was junior bridesmaid, I remember. Jeannie's mother and Norman's mother were sisters. So, of course, we had to keep this family thing going. And Barbara Kushner, Barbara Ruback at the time, was our flower girl. And, I do remember a few things about that. But it was great. It was, my husband had his brother and my brother and his cousin. And, weddings in those days, I guess they're still that way. I don't go to that many now. But it's mostly family. It's for family, and mostly family participate in it.
Where did you go on your honeymoon?
Well, again I say money was scarce. So we talked about a honeymoon and decided no, we wouldn't take a honeymoon. Maybe we got married in April. We said maybe sometime during the summer we would be able to go up to Lake Okoboji and spend a weekend there. But to have a honeymoon per se, we didn't plan on it. And then Norman's father said, if you want to go up to Sioux City, you can use my car, because we didn't own a car. And he says, but you can't go over 35 miles driving up to Sioux City because the car won't. He had a Lincoln Zephyr at the time. He says the car just won't go any faster than that. Can you imagine driving to Sioux City at 35 miles an hour? Well, we drove to Sioux City and stayed at the Sioux Apartment Hotel. And the first night we were there, the bed broke. And we were ashamed to tell the proprietor that our bed broke, so we slept on a broken bed for the 2 days we were there. And when we came back, Ruth Lincoln, who was a member of the Rakusin family, had an open house, and it had invited all the family. My husband's family was Bill Rakusin, Sadie Chernus, Marie Blacker. There were 7 girls in her family, and one boy. And my father-in-law had 5 sisters and 1 brother. And so it was a big, big family that reached out throughout the community. And that's how we happened to have that many people. That there was a lot of people from that side of the family that came to the wedding. And then my parents had a lot of friends, but we didn't have many relatives. But it was quite a wedding. was quite a wedding.
Let's talk a little bit about your sons.
My sons, who I'm very proud of, our oldest son, Hugh, has always been a joy. He, during grade school and college at the University of Nebraska, he never lived up to his potential. He had great potential, but he was a guy that slid by, and we couldn't motivate him to do anything else. But as he matured and decided he wanted to go be an attorney, he turned around his life and became somebody that loved his profession, loved helping people, always loved defending the underdog, and has worked very, very hard in his life to get to where he is. He was married to a young woman from Gering, Nebraska, a Jewish girl whose parents had been Holocaust survivors, and he met her at down in Lincoln, and the marriage lasted about 8 years, and they divorced. And Hugh was a bachelor for probably 10 to 12 years, and he met his wife, present wife, who is non-Jewish but a lovely lady. She also is an attorney, and they have a great bond between the two of them. Hugh has 2 daughters, my granddaughters, Nicole, the youngest, and Jill, the eldest. Nicole is now 31 years old, and Jill is 36. Jill, incidentally, just got married to an Israeli young man in New York on May 28th, and I was able to attend the wedding, and it was a very, very lovely, small wedding. Just immediate family, and very, very, maybe 4 close friends. It was at I forget what the name of the synagogue was, but it was done in excellent taste, and as I say, a very small affair. And Nicole, his youngest daughter, is living in Kansas City. She works for Sprint and is a, I don't know, every job has a specialty, and she's a specialist to the president, and is a single parent mother of a little boy, Asa, who is 5 years old, and of course he's just the best there is in our eyes. He's Nicole has been living in Kansas City for about 7 years and likes it very much, has a home, bought a home there, and we see her quite often. Now Steve, as I say, has become independent, even though he has his left side paralysis. Every day of the week he goes either to a spa or a health, I don't know, physical therapy place, and works out continually. About 22 years ago, he met a young lady. Her name was Holly Joseph Passer, and they married, and unfortunately Holly took ill about 5 years ago with a stroke, and they discovered she had MS, and at first she went to an assisted living care. Now she's in the Blumkin home because she's had several strokes, and is not able to function at home, nor could Steve take care of her at home. So Steve is in his home, taking care of himself and taking care of Holly's needs in the home. Steve worked at Boys Town first, before he worked at Boys Town, he worked in a group home as an assistant family teacher, caring for disadvantaged adults. And that shows you the tenacity that he had. After he had his accident, he wanted to go back to school. He had been attending the University of Missouri. And when the accident happened, and after the accident happened, when he was starting to function, he decided he'd like to try to go back to school. So at first he went to Bellevue College, then attended University of Omaha, and did graduate from there. His graduation present from us to him was a trip around the world. And